All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. So we have several things we're going to talk about on this call. We have an exciting announcement that Rex is going to share towards the end, so that should keep you on the call here. And then we're going to talk about what a lot of you are kind of feeling right now, still in September, and that your buyers losing out on properties. Our shortage of inventory is not making this easy on us. I know a lot of you are writing multiple offers for buyers before they get the house. And that can be really taxing on you and your client. So every year we kind of see people using new strategies to win with their buyers. I've spoken to multiple agents and lenders to kind of see what they're seeing and what pointers they might have for us. I think it's always a good idea if you write an offer on a property and you go up against multiple offers and your buyer doesn't get that property, to contact the agent and say, hey, what could we have done better? You don't have to ask them what offer they accepted or the terms of that purchase agreement. They probably wouldn't tell you. But if you call them and say, hey, can you share what was it that your seller was looking for? What made the winning offer appealing? They're probably going to give you a lot of information. And then you can use that moving forward with that buyer. One of the tactics that I saw on our Facebook group this past week, thank you, Sherry, I don't think she's on here, for the comedic relief, but
I'm on here.
Oh,
I'm on here.
there you are. I loved your post with here's the blank purchase agreement. Please fill it out.
Yeah.
Have your seller fill it out. I think all are feeling that way. Please don't take that approach, but that was a good one. So let's talk. What is it that your buyers can offer a seller to make their offer appealing? We all know a clean offer is going to go a long way. What do I mean by a clean offer? Not asking for buyer concessions, not asking for home warranties, not asking for any added items, just keep it clean. Including a buyer letter. So this is something I always like to do. Asking your buyer to write a letter to the seller to kind of appeal to their emotional side. I've had buyers do this on even investor properties. You would think maybe an investor doesn't care or it wouldn't matter to them, but we have a lot of investors that are local investors and they might somehow appeal to that investor. I had one where he just wrote a little bit about himself and where he was working and how it was close to the house. And oddly enough, that investor had worked for that same company like 20 years prior. And they just thought that was really cool. And for that reason, they chose my buyer, even though they were like $500 less than the higher offer. So really random things. I don't encourage your buyers to lie or not tell the truth, but they can try to relate to the seller in some way. You see dog bowls in the kitchen and your buyer has hopes and dreams of adopting dogs. They can relate to the seller in that way and share that with them, and it might go a long way. Having a great lender, so we see this often, your pre-approval is more than just about what they're pre-approved for, right? If you have a lender that you have a really good relationship with that will call that listing agent prior to them accepting an offer and speak to the strength of your buyer, that can always help. But then also just having a lender that has a fantastic local reputation, that's really huge. If you're not working with someone that has a good local reputation, you can ask our agents, who do we use? Who do we know? Who would we recommend? Ask some listing agents about who they would like to see buyers coming with pre-approvals from, and kind of explore those options. We all know about the escalation clause. That, of course, is really powerful. I do think that there are some agents, though, again, it's another reason to call an agent before submitting an offer. Ask them, hey, do you like escalation clauses, or is your seller going to be considering escalation clauses? Just kind of poking and seeing what that agent's opinion is. I think there are some maybe old school agents or agents that have been around for a while before escalation clauses were a thing that actually really dislike them. So maybe knowing that and going in with a strong offer without an escalation clause is the way to approach that scenario. So yeah, an escalation clause, we could beat that horse to death. Also, an escalation clause does open you up to a counter. So that's something I always tell people. It opens you up to a counter to accept an offer with an escalation clause. The listing party has to counter back. So the fastest way to come to an agreement, if there are not other offers yet, would just be to submit a clean, strong offer, maybe over list price without that escalation clause, to get them to accept it rather than counter back, because I've certainly seen those counters arrive in the buyer's agent's email, and then within a matter of minutes they receive another offer and they withdraw that counter offer. So it could potentially backfire. Cash difference for low appraisal. So I think this is one that we've been seeing this summer that I think is kind of picking up momentum. So you write into the contract something with the verbiage of, if the appraisal is low, the buyer is willing to make up the cash difference. This can be up to the purchase price, or I've just seen it say, for a low appraisal, the buyer is willing to pay up to $5,000 difference over that low appraisal amount. So that could be any dollar amount. But I've certainly used that here in the past couple of months, where we've accepted offers like that, and buyers have made up the cash difference, which is really appealing to a seller. This is a new one that I hadn't seen before this summer, but taxes. So let's say you're not sure it's going to appraise for more than what it's listed for, or more than what you're offering. We normally check box 2 under the tax section in our purchase agreement. You could check the tax box 1, where the buyer is assuming all the taxes starting on X date, whatever that is. So rather than that seller giving a credit to the buyer at closing, they could potentially pocket up to, a couple $1,000s more just by that tax box being checked and changed to number 1 rather than our standard number 2. I would certainly point that out to the agent when you're sending over the offer. If you're doing that, to make them aware of it, they may have never seen it before or not fully understand how that benefits their seller. But I think that's a really good way to negotiate without being worried about the appraisal price. So another thing is a property inspection waiver. So some of you might be thinking waiving inspection when I say this, but this is actually on the lender end. It has to do with the appraisal. So some lenders can waive the appraisal if they feel strongly about the value of the property and you have a strong conventional buyer. Do not promise this without speaking to your lender in advance and having your lender run numbers on the property. But they basically have a computer underwriting system that allows them to do an appraisal without going into the property. And if that first initial computer appraisal comes in at value or higher, they can sometimes waive that appraisal, which could be really appealing to some sellers. And then, of course, we all know about the as-is addendum. We also know that kind of benefits the buyer, but a lot of sellers look at that in a really positive way because the intention is that that buyer is going to be purchasing without asking for a lot of things on inspection, hopefully. So I ran through those really quickly, that list of what you can kind of do and what we're seeing in the marketplace. I think it's really important to set expectations with your buyer. Tell them what you're seeing in the market. Run comps for them on a property and show them that these properties were listed at this price and sold for this price. And showing them kind of that list to sales price ratio can set them up for success before you're even writing an offer. And then talking them through the different scenarios, and really setting that expectation and telling them it's a really competitive market, will just help you with that buyer every step of the way. I know Rex wanted to speak more on that, so I'll let you chime in here, Rex. I'll read through some of these questions too, and we'll kind of go back and forth.
Sure thing. Thanks, Jess. I do a lot of, especially with clients that are in that, I mean, anything under 300,000, it seems like right now, I'm really doing a lot of, legwork with clients and just an aggressive market. So what I find is just sitting down with my clients to set their expectation of, hey, what you are looking for, most of the time, I'm generalizing, is pretty in line with what the hump of the bell curve is looking for in an ideal home here in Indianapolis. We should expect that we go into a buyer and we go into a situation where we're making an offer, that there's others that are going to do the same very, very quickly. That means that when we see something come on, the faster you can move to get in there, the more prepared you are from having your pre-approval and knowing what you can go up to, knowing what that monthly payment looks like and you're comfortable with, just everything on your own, cash flow, liquidity, and budgeting, and lending arena, having those covered, beforehand and staying up on them is going to help us, move well as we go to write up an offer. And then I tell them the biggest thing that I'm seeing win deals, outside of, cash and price, is simplicity. A simple offer. Where, and just a little example of that, where I'm seeing some good success in winning out on deals that are in a multiple offer situation. So I'm recommending, if they can do it, at least 10% down. I'm recommending an escalation of typically about 15,000 over list, with that jumping up in $2,000 increments over the next closest offer. I am also putting together some supportive comps in the area and sending that to the agent, saying, look, you probably already know this, but I want you to know I know it too. This isn't a game where we're going to escalate up, and then, oh, it didn't appraise, you gotta bring it back down. We've done the homework. And take a look on those supportive comps at dollar per square foot. That's just something that's missed a lot in those comps that the appraisers are going to go back to every time. And so, if I can show there's a good base of supportive comps in the area and a dollar per square foot approach, that tends to help me get uh, some good justification for the price that we're willing to go up to. 30-day close. Jess, what you said on a local, lender with a good reputation is huge. Buyer letter, definitely. There's a couple other things I'm doing that not every agent is going to be comfortable with, but I am writing a lot of as is. And we're given about a 10-day window to get in there and make sure that this property is what we think it is and that there's no big, scary, deal crushing issues. And I'm also positioning some of my buyers to take a bit of a unique approach where they are working with other nonlinear family members or other friends who have a either a cash base, or they can often position a portion of their retirement account in what's called a self-directed IRA or 401k, and they can lend cash to that individual to buy this without having to go through the appraisal, without having to bridge that for, like the note is 12 months, but we typically start the refi process in 6. So they're able to move on cash. That family member or that friend is typically able to get, some an interest rate that's agreeable to them. And especially with the financial climate coming up and the election, we're seeing a lot of people pull money out of other traditional places in the market. And so something like this is a little bit more appealing in this time. But, giving that buyer the opportunity to use that cash and then refi out later is something that I've seen work really, really well to stand above. What I'm not seeing work well is unlimited escalations without justification, low money down with a finance deal, and then inspections with a bunch of caveats where you're hitting on, we need to do an air quality test, and we need to, just kind of run through the gamut, and and we need to take care of our clients that, and we need to make sure they're getting a good home. I am seeing, I think ultimately complicated deals without margin, no matter how high that price is, get tossed. And we're actually winning deals where we're not the highest price. We just got one where we're 5 figures away from the highest price that was offered, good 5 figures off. But we were the simplest deal that gave the seller the most assurance that it could get done.
Yeah, I think that's important to note, Rex. Really having open dialogue with the listing agent, because you're not just trying to submit the highest offer sometimes. And yes, often it does come down to numbers for the seller. But if their agent can go to them and say, I feel really confident in this buyer and their agent, I think their agent knows this neighborhood well. They know they're not offering this outrageous amount and it might not appraise, and they're leaning heavily on that financing contingency, and they're just going to talk us down after the appraisal comes in low. They really know the market. They're sending us an offer that's reasonable. They know old houses, and they have confidence in you and your ability to speak with your buyer. That's just going to go a really long way. So I always encourage you all to call that list agent before submitting that offer, finding out what the seller situation is. Every seller is different. They might have certain things that they have experiences with that turned out poorly. And you'd be surprised. I think Lance said it. You'd be surprised what you might learn from a list agent if you get on the phone and call them. If they have an emotional appeal to something in the house that they really wanted to keep, allowing them to keep that, or allowing them a few extra days to move out because their move is complicated, you might find that out during that call, and it could go a really long way, and be the difference between a few $1,000s sometimes on your offer. What else do we have here? Everyone, yeah, agrees that a letter is a good idea. What do you do when the agent sucks at communication? Oh man, that's a great question. I think sometimes it comes down to finding the way that they prefer to communicate. So I'm a phone talker. I like to just call people and get a hold of them right away and talk through everything really quickly. If that agent immediately texts me back and I can't get them on the phone, I realize they prefer text. So I'm going to sit down and try to have a really long text dialogue with them, to communicate everything I was going to do on a phone call. But I think meeting them where they feel comfortable and sending a really nice email when you submit that offer. We can share things just through .loop now, and that makes it pretty easy. But I think following up with an email and just explaining like your buyer's strengths, and your strengths as an agent can go a long way.
I also call the office manager, because they're typically, going to get that agent to pick up the phone or have a higher conversion rate than I am. And that does seem to put another level of urgency on the realtor to respond. And then I have been so bold as to actually just go to the brokerage, or if I know where they're working out of, and just try to catch them, which in COVID times is a little tougher, but I've had success.
Mm-hmm. Angelica, I see your question about fair housing and letters, and I've certainly seen that through different real estate groups. I don't think I would never encourage my clients to do something that is against fair housing. And I think writing a letter and speaking to how they love the home and how it's going to work well for them and how it's what they've been looking for, um, can go a long way, and that's not against fair housing. Now, you can get into some situations where maybe you would be, and I certainly would not want my buyers to do that and start appealing, to a seller in a way that would be inappropriate or go against fair housing. So I think having that conversation with your buyer and kind of what you're looking for, when they're submitting a letter. And I tell people, tell them what you love about this house. How are you going to live in this house? Appreciate what they've done and how they've cared for it. And that's really what I'm looking for in a letter. Yeah, and definitely have them send it to you first. I always have them send it to me. I usually put it in a PDF, and send it along with some details that we're submitting for the offer. What else have you guys seen? I would love to hear from any of you who have maybe won out, in a competitive offer situation with your buyers, and what that success looked like for you, what you did to help your buyers get that property, or list agents, what your sellers have been looking for. Steve puts in short, expiration times so that people have to respond back pretty quickly. Absolutely. You know, I think when I started in real estate, it was pretty standard to give 24 hours. If you gave less than that, people were like, what are you doing? But now we're seeing, 6 hours by the end of the day. You have to respond. And I think that's fine. Again, I think having a conversation with that real estate agent and saying, hey, I'm going to put a short deadline in here, just so they don't think you're trying to be a jerk necessarily. But asking them, is your seller in a situation where they can respond quickly? if I put a short deadline. You don't want to get into a situation, obviously, where you're submitting an offer with a 4-hour window and their seller is working in a hospital and has no access to their phone and responding in that timeline. Um, so I try to show that I care about their seller and I want to get it done as quickly as possible. So I'll kind of feel that out in that initial phone call that I have with a list agent.
I see some questions on FHA. One thing that we have had success with there is we've written into the contract that if there are any appraiser required repairs, that the buyer will take care of those. Typically that's chipping paint. That's, something that just needs to be scraped and touched up and whatnot. But being able to take that off of a seller's list of concerns has worked for us.
Yeah, I've done the same, Rex, where I've had that same issue with chipping paint on FHA. Pointed out to my buyers when we're doing that initial walkthrough, tell them, hey, I know this is going to come up. There might be a few other things with FHA. Really verse yourself in what FHA appraisers are looking for when they go out to those properties. And then speak with your buyers about what they can expect as far as those repairs. A lot of times, if you have a good relationship with contractors, um, you can work something so that they're paid at closing, which is going to help your buyers feel a little bit more comfortable with moving forward for that type of deal. Um, yeah, Mena, the deadline, I see that a lot. And as a buyer's agent, I can certainly see why you don't like that. I try to speak to my buyers about that deadline. And while it doesn't allow us to win based on being the first offer, it does allow us to consider everything, and really do our due diligence about what we're going to submit as far as offer, and then feeling really comfortable that this is the house. So I think it does create a situation where your buyers are less likely to have buyer's remorse because they've had time to look at numbers, research the neighborhood and pull comps and have you do all of that back end work without rushing with an offer, that maybe they haven't thought through or don't feel really comfortable with. So I do like those deadlines just for that reason alone. It gives us time to get everything put together and really think it through. Yes, Lance, it is net. So you're using the escalation clause off of that net. So I know I have a very simple spreadsheet where I have all the different categories of what goes into a purchase agreement. So closing costs, home warranty, purchase price, closing date. I kind of have those all laid out so we can compare each offer and net it out at the bottom. So it's really helpful when you get 7 offers, that you can lay them all out and net them all out on one sheet. But yes, it is on net price and not just the purchase price. Zach, yeah, that's great. Putting into a purchase agreement that your buyer will only ask for inspection items that cost $1,000 or greater. I think that would be really appealing to a seller, knowing that their property isn't going to be nitpicked by a potential buyer and they're just not going to like hammer them with all the tiny repairs. That's really good advice. And he credited Natalie for that. Rex, anything else? Anyone else want to speak as to what they've seen? These are all really good pointers.
I think outside of that, the best thing you can do is establish a good relationship with the agent on the other side of the table. And going in from a standpoint of valuing that individual, and we all know like that is not always returned, but goes a long way when, I mean, that agent is often asked, well, which offer do you think we should take? And if there's a difference between an agent that has taken a relational step and the deals are close, and someone who's taken a very adversarial, like this, hey, we're coming at it, but we're in the war room, the likelihood of that agent saying, we got two close offers here. I can tell you that the agent that I spoke to on this offer, understands what the house is, understands this market, and I had a really good engagement with them. I think some of these offers are, even though they may be a little higher, we got a pretty competitive individual on the other side of the table that we may fight all the way to closing.
Yeah, and I think that can come back around to you too, Rex. You're absolutely right. If that deal goes south and maybe their sellers chose another offer, well, you created this really good relationship, and even when your offer was rejected, spoke to the agent with respect and kindness. If that deal gets shaky at some point, I think it's very likely that list agent is going to give you the heads up. I just had that happen in the past week where an agent was like, hey, we're working through inspection. I know your buyer really liked this house and things are getting shaky. I want to give you the heads up. So you could potentially have the opportunity to move forward with that property before it even hits the market again. I mean, it really just benefits your buyers and your clients when we have good working relationships with other agents throughout the city. So it's a really good reminder, Rex. If there's nothing else on how to win in this competitive market, I'm going to shift to Rex for our big announcement here at Plat, and what you guys can expect to see here in the next year.
Thanks, Jess. I'm being a bit intentionally vague because we don't have this completely baked out yet, to be honest. But Mark and I will be launching a commercial brokerage, named Plat Commercial, by the end of the year. We are doing that as a way to assist, the agents in our brokerage and us included in commercial transactions. There are some, and I'm sure many of you have been in a similar situation. Some of those we just need help. We don't do a whole lot of them, and we need to know how to get on the other side. There's others that I'm fine referring over and making the referral split on a deal that it's so outside of my wheelhouse that I just can't give the time to do it. I actually end up losing money and emotional margin by trying to plow through it. We have brought on the assistance of Natasha Rankin, who is a commercial real estate broker. She has most recently been with Warner Retail Group, been with them since 2015, has a tremendous amount of experience in commercial, really coast to coast. And so helping, buyers on find property that they're looking for here locally, absolutely, but also, in other states, all over the U.S. She's done a lot of leasing. She's in subleasing, and is bringing in and helping us architect the infrastructure for a commercial, brokerage of, and division of Plat. This is kind of getting momentum going to be launched before the end of the year. We will bring a manager in to quarterback that day to day. Natasha's coming in really to help us get this launched. What we want to have there is someone that you can engage with and work with, and you know where to go to be able to get the help on those commercial deals. And I think, you know, what we're seeing in this city, as far as commercial is intended, is diversifying and it's spreading out. So it used to be if you were doing it, you know, any sort of volume in commercial, you were doing it in a square mile. Well, that's not the case anymore. We're seeing a lot of commercial pop up and, you know, not just, you know, near North Side or Fletcher Place, or, but that's moving out. I mean, to the edges of, you know, Irvington, pushing east and west. I mean, all over the city. You know, 16th Street corridor, Raymond, 38th Street is blowing up. And I think we're going to continue to see this increasing rate of expansion of higher dollar than we've seen historically across Indianapolis, higher dollar commercial real estate, that our brokerage and our agents are uniquely positioned to walk in as far as the knowledge of what is selling, what's going on. And we just need, you know, the help to then bring the commercial horsepower and experience. I mean, I don't have it. It's not what I do. But we need that to be able to capitalize on the opportunity that from a knowledge of the city and of the neighborhoods and what's going on and who's there, to be able to resource our agents for the success in their work. So that's the announcement that we have. You know, as a residential realtor in Indiana, we can transact both commercial and residential. This is really a focus on, you know, being able to, you know, bring a high level of infrastructure support and expertise to an area that's expanding within the geography that we're already growing very aggressively. You guys, in transaction volume for the last like 4+ months, we are up 3x over last year. That's insane. This is just another facet that we're going to continue to reinforce as we grow. So excited to be doing this, excited for what it brings to the brokerage and to my own work and team. And I'm happy to the best of my ability to answer questions on what that looks like. I'm not going to have all the answers just yet because this is still really getting baked out. I could not be more excited about Natasha and what she's brought in helping us do this well and make sure that we're putting something together that we don't have to melt and repour in 90 days. So that's it. Surprise.
That's awesome, Rex. I am really excited for this as well. I mean, to have a resource here within Plat where we're not referring commercial agent or commercial transactions out or muddling through them without any type of help is going to be huge for our agents, so that our clients can have that great experience with commercial still within the Plat brand. So I'm so excited for this. And I've actually had the honor of meeting Natasha, and I love her. You guys will all enjoy Natasha, and hopefully we'll get the chance to interact with her quite a bit here. So Rex, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the call today. We'll follow up. We'll send the video out with an email for those agents that maybe missed out on some of this information. But have a great rest of your week and enjoy the holiday weekend.